I'm not even on social media right now. I'm taking a hiatus because I
Yeah.
was on social media too much in December and
Yeah.
November because of hated rivalry, and now I'm just like pulling it back.
Yeah. I feel that. I
Yeah.
I was listening to one of the latest episodes of Fated Mates, and I think Sarah talks about like having a block on her phone for like Instagram and Threads where it's like you get 45 minutes a day and then it like cuts her off. And I was like, maybe I need to do.
Yeah, I have a brick which I've been using, and that's been good. And I also have a block, but I can get around it
Yeah.
if I want to be on bad enough. I
Yeah.
usually around like I'm actually usually pretty good about not being online all the time, but I just kind of let myself do whatever I wanted because I was so happy that the rivalry existed. But now I need to go back to my normal life.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel that. Yeah, I have like three separate heated rivalry watch events scheduled for the next month, so I
Yeah, I
understand.
haven't done any kind of like group.
Hmm.
Like we're actually talking about just someone from Word Bookstore, which is in Queen. It's in Brooklyn, and
Hmm.
wanted me and Joanna Shoop to do something, and I was like, I'll do it, but I'll do it if it's like a watch party, like where we can all
Yeah.
watch episode 6 and then just like
Yeah.
drink and talk about it. But I am on like 7 different group chats for the show,
Yeah.
and
So
I needed to not be 90% of my brain energy anymore.
cut yourself off. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go cold
Cold
turkey.
turkey. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of We Read It One Night. I am your host, Allison Finch. I'm a romance reader and recovering nonfiction editor, and I am so glad to be joined here today by USA Today best-selling author of the La Leona series, author of the podcast episode that we did, Her Night with Santa, and co-founder of AH Squared Romance Collections, Adriana Herrera.
Hi, thanks for having me. Finally made it. Felt like I
Yeah.
couldn't get my life together to be on here, but I'm glad I made it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could. So I've been thinking, obviously, the United States is a mess.
Hmm.
And we have the State of the Union coming up like next week. And so I was like, this is a good time, I think, to do a state of the romance genre and the romance industry. And I thought that you, especially, would be a really perfect person to talk about this with because, like, you're a best-selling like trad pub author, but you're also a indie published and like hybrid author, and like you're doing the Kickstarter, and like I feel like you have such like a broad view of like romance and like where we are and where we're going and
That's a good question. Where is romance going? Where it's been, and it's it is kind of romance is in an interesting place. I mean, I guess I can just jump into it. So here's the thing: what I feel like romance has gone through a really interesting transformation in the last, well, 5, 6 years now
Hmm.
since pandemic slash book talk, like the
Hmm.
advent of book talk. I think the model for, or at least the model that existed when I came into romance trying to get published like 2016, like 10 years ago, is really different
Cool.
now because I mean it feels like a very different industry.
Yeah.
And romance, I do think like every for the last like 25 years, like every 5 to 10 years, something like pretty big happens in terms of like either technology or some kind of like, or a book that kind of like really
Hmm.
brings in like a massive amounts of readers. Like even when I was just even as a romance reader, I have always paid a lot of attention to kind of how the audience of romance works. I've been reading romance since I was in middle school, and
Yeah.
I'm in my late 40s. So, romance is my longest relationship by far. Like I've been in it as a reader, and as a reader that pays attention to like the zeitgeist of
Yeah.
romance, probably for the last 20 years, but obviously more closely in the last 10 years as I've been like trying to be like a professional in it. Um, but like in 2012, like 50 Shades of Grey came out, and also ebooks. It was a
Mm-hmm.
self-published first book that got picked up by Trad. And that what happened with 50 Shades is a ton of people came into the genre, like a ton of
Mm-hmm.
people that had never read romance, read 50 Shades of Grey. A lot of them stayed, a lot of them left. But what it really did do was bring indie publishing as something that was a viable way to get readers in romance, and also really brought in like a ton of like ebook first imprints. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the traditional publishing houses at that time opened digital first. Like that's how I got published for the first
Yeah.
time with Carina Press. I mean, I was actually thinking about this the other day because Rachel Reed, who is,
Yeah.
the author of the Game Changer series, and I both debuted with Carina Press,
Yeah.
which was the imprint, the digital first imprint for Harlequin at the same time. Like that's how we've known each other for a long time because we
Mm-hmm.
essentially trauma bonded over the trials and tribulations of, but that was, we were both just digital first, no advance. You
Yeah.
kind of just like got no advance and you got published. And then, you could get your book into print, you could not. And that's how it worked when you were writing queer romance
Mm-hmm.
in 2017, 2018.
Right.
And from there to now, it's a very different landscape, but it just kind of is like a snapshot of just like how this industry really every 5 or 10 years like does like massive shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of that to say is I think the TikTok and the pandemic also brought a massive amount of readers into the genre.
Mm-hmm.
And that readership is really kind of very like it's almost like they're in like they're their own community of readers who
Mm-hmm.
maybe necessarily don't have a strong sense of like all of like what romance is or has been for like the last 30 years. It's very informed by like the algorithm, but it is like a readership that really is like shaping
Mm-hmm.
what is being published. And because of that readership, there's also like this big influx of KU authors that are going viral in on KU because of TikTok, and then
Mm-hmm.
those books are getting picked up from Trad, which has always happened in some ways. Like 50
Yeah.
Shades of Grey is a perfect example. It was a fic that
Mm-hmm.
became it was a Twilight fic that was
Yeah.
self-published, and then it became this massive viral book, and then it got picked up by a traditional publisher. So it is always something that's been done. It's just I don't think
Mm-hmm.
has been done with as much frequency as now. It almost is like just kind of like the business model is changing, where so much more of the energy of trad pub is in finding those books that are kind of like creating their own audience,
Yeah.
and they're just picking them up for distribution, as opposed to what has always been where like
Yeah.
trad is discovering voices and bringing people into the literary space and like creating spaces to foster people's like writing careers. The
Mm-hmm.
midlist is gone too, which is also like an
Right.
interesting piece of the puzzle. So huh, where is romance right now? Romance is growing fast, like I think that's
Yeah.
one of the things. Like it's always been really big, but I think now it's like I feel like every 6 months, like something happens that really it like heated rivalry, for example, is a
Right.
perfect example of something that it's a book that has been a big book with a certain readership. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
book came out 6 years ago. It's one of my all-time favorite romance novels. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading that book as an arc and thinking, this book is going to be huge. It's just so good.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was it was still like a big book given the that it was a queer romance. It came out in 2019 and it
Hmm.
had a huge, like a very, very dedicated fan base, but like it
Hmm.
was a book that had the potential to do what it has done, right?
Right. It hadn't broken containment yet.
Right. And so, you know, it just so happens that like it landed in the right hands, and this adaptation is so fantastic that it's really brought this book to like the world essentially. And like, what does that mean for romance now? Like, does it mean that romance is going to
Mm-hmm.
have a renaissance? Is it that
Hmm.
hockey romance is going to explode? Like,
Hmm.
what does it mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we saw like a similar thing to this, you know, geez, it was 5 years ago now when the first season of Bridgerton came out, right?
Right.
And we were all, I know you're a historical romance fan, I'm a historical romance fan. We were all like, historical romance is gonna get a big boost. And then it didn't. So it is interesting to like see how people will react to something when it's on screen versus how that translates to romance readership.
Yeah, I have thought about this actually a lot
Hmm.
because obviously for selfish reasons, I thought, oh, you know,
Yeah.
this Bridgerton phenomenon could really do something for historical. I think the big difference, honestly, is that you know, the Bridgerton books are hugely popular, but we're older. You know, they were books that
Hmm.
were 20 plus years old when the show came out, and like romance is always very tied to what's in the moment culturally. And
Hmm.
so like part of that is that, you know, you're watching a show and the text isn't quite exactly like
Yeah.
what the books are, especially the representation. Obviously it's not there. um and with Heated Rivalry, I think it's like the opposite. Like it's such a
Hmm.
faithful adaptation that if
Right.
you go to the book, you really are literally just re-experiencing the show, but with the interior life in it. And so it's a richer experience, I think. And I think you get more obsessed with it, is my guess. Like this was my guess. I
Yeah.
think knowing the book as much as I do, I've read this book many times over the years, and having seen the show, I was like, I think this is people are going to go to the book and love it more because it's so close
Hmm.
to the book. So I mean, I think that, but again, I don't know if that means that people are just going to read those books and just be so obsessed with them as they should be because they're so good,
Right.
and expand, you know, go and look for more romance, or go
Yeah.
look for more hockey romance, or just stop there. Like I don't know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder where, like, you were talking about book talk and how that is like such a driving force in the industry now, both for, indie pub and trad pub. But I don't know. I don't know what your experience has been like, but I feel like it's harder to discover new book besides like the top 40 books that are, popular right now on book talk than it was like, for example, I came in to romance, finally got over my internalized misogyny in like 2020, and I joined Facebook groups. And that was like a much more personalized, I feel like, experience, whereas like book talk
Mm.
is a lot more general. So I wonder whether, despite this kind of veneer of it seeming like it's like easier than ever to like find books to read, whether that's actually true.
I don't know. I mean, I am not on TikTok. I have never been on TikTok. So I couldn't say what, like, the ease of discovering new things is. But like anything else, like we are like algorithms
Hmm.
are so dictated by number of followers, or
Right.
what's an ad, what's not an ad. So and honestly, just like saturation, like
Hmm.
there is a viable like livelihood now for people creating content around books. Like it is big business now to
Hmm.
read books and be an influencer in terms of like genre, specifically romance. So I think all of those things are going to make it like there's just so much more action in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just a lot more of everything that has to do with romance. Like romance it's always been big business, but like I mean just the idea that in 2019 there were three, maybe four, two, three, maybe four romance bookstores in the entire United States.
Mm.
And there's like over 200 now.
Yeah.
Like that, just that tells you that like it is like
Yeah.
also a saturation thing. Like there's just like a big audience and market and consumer
Hmm.
for this genre than it used to be. And so, people are gonna want to get in on it.
Yeah, right. Unfortunately, we do live under capitalism,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
where
and
the
I mean
money
some of I
goes.
mean to me it's like there's such great things about it, and there's obviously like people that are profiteers that are not like don't love the genre, are not necessarily people that
Mhm.
want to think about the genre in terms of like its importance on how powerful it is and
Hmm.
how it is something that people come to because it is a really really important space in the literary world, but some people just want to be here because it's very profitable to be here. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. And I mean, obviously, like, romance, like as a genre, I feel like since its sort of modern inception, in the 70s with, The Flame and the Flower, I think is like the
Kathleen Woodward, yeah.
first official one. Like romance has always been like it, in a lot of ways, like a progressive force in terms of how it's like reflects what we're thinking and the society that we're in, and like sort of pushes understanding about particularly like sexuality and things like that forward. But there's always been, will continue to be like a more conservative element toward in the romance genre among romance readers and writers. Like, do you see that element? Do you think it's like grown bigger or stronger, in light of where the United States has been going? Or does it just kind of seem that way because it's like there's more of a platform? Or
I mean, romance. I mean, I don't think I am not a believer that just because things are created by women, they are inherently feminist.
hmm.
I think for something to be feminist, you have to do it on purpose. Like
Hmm.
just because you're a woman and you're doing something doesn't mean that what you're doing is feminism. Because, if we're going through that lens, then is every woman in the Trump administration a feminist? Because they are exercising their free will.
Right.
And so to me, like that is something that I just don't think is true. I think feminism is it's an ideology. It's not like a implicit thing that happens just because a woman is
Yeah.
doing something. And so that means that in the romance space, like there's women that are going to be writing things that are going to be progressive and on purpose, thinking about gender roles and the dynamics of social justice or their place in the world or just the way their values reflect
Hmm.
feminist values, and that's going to come out in the writing
Hmm.
even if they're not going in like I'm writing a feminist book. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, just their value system is a value system that aligns with a feminist ideology. And on the flip side, there are women who are writing romance that have values that align with, let's say, the MAGA movement.
Mm-hmm.
And those values are going to come out in the writing on how they present gender roles, or how they present their perception of where this country is, or where their
Mm-hmm.
worldview is, or like how they see immigrants, or how they see, their communities, how their communities look like in those books. Like, all of those things come out, like come out in the writing and in the story and the worldview. What, protagonists are supposed to be people that like
Mm-hmm.
learn, grow, evolve through a story. And so what that growth evolution looks like is going to depend on the worldview of the person. So I think all of that to say is, I think we are in a space where a lot of people are writing romance. I think accessibility in terms of like people
Mm-hmm.
just writing is a lot bigger. I think you can just like, it's not like it was 10, 15 years ago where you had to have a book deal to write
Right.
a romance novel. Now, if you want to write romance, you write your book and you put it up online and you're a published
Yeah.
author, which I think is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's given us such, I honestly think the only reason why the romance genre is not dead in certain ways is because self-publishing has grown, because I think a lot of like the most interesting things that are being put out
Yeah.
in terms of romance are being put out by indie authors. I think, publishing just inherently is very risk adverse. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think we are getting a lot of the most exciting stuff that we're getting is through like people like Kimberly Lemming, for example, or, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, just really, just books that child publishing would like not even conceived as something that there will be a market for, and yet now, of course, she's trad published because, of course, there was an
Right.
audience for her stuff. Or Ruby Dixon, you know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah. Or Kate C. Wells. Like, yeah.
so many. Casey Wells, also perfect example. Claire Kent, like all of these
Mm-hmm.
authors who are just phenomenal and just have built their own space in indie. But all of that to say is like anybody can write a romance, including, people whose worldview is,
Right.
not necessarily politically a worldview that is progressive
Mm-hmm.
or feminist or humane.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot about like, the rise of dark romance and what that means, and I
Mm-hmm.
think dark romance is a space where a lot of things could happen. There's dark romance that is very feminist and interesting and has a lot to say about gender roles and, survivors and all kinds of things. And there's going to be dark romance where, perhaps like that's not to say, but at the same time, like small town romance is also a space that can be very treacherous in terms of like
Right.
progressive views. So to me, it's just like romance is probably the genre that, as you said, is the most reflective in real time of what is happening in the ether.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that like if you like, there's no better archive of where the culture is in terms of consent, of gender, like representation, of sexual, like how we're thinking about desire, how we're thinking of gender expression, what we're thinking about like how we express ourselves sexually than a romance novel. Like if you want to
Mm-hmm.
know how people are thinking about even sexuality, like when I started reading queer romance, probably like not fic, because fic I've been reading for a long, long time.
Yeah. Fake is a different ball ball
And
game.
and a lot of romance came from fic. It was a lot
Right.
of people, mostly women, who were writing fic and then, started writing romance.
Well, the Game Changers series wasn't like the first book is a Stucky fic.
That's the lore.
Allegedly. I have not heard that from Rachel herself, but
I think
yeah.
Rachel might have said that. I have not asked her. I should probably ask her because I am a big Stucky fan. Stucky is still my most favorite fandom. But this is even before Stucky. I'm talking about
Right.
like 2005. I'm talking Supernatural, fic. I'm
Yeah.
talking 2005, 2006. And like back then, this is, my goodness, already 20 years ago. Um, Back then, a lot of the MM that was very popular was gay for you, which now is, that language is obsolete. It's a bisexual awakening. It's,
Right.
people who are Gen Xers, people who, like, I'm a Gen Xer, and, people who are in their 40s now or late 40s now who were bisexual and just like had not given themselves the freedom to like explore that part of their sexuality. And so, like,
Hmm.
that now using gay for you is not an appropriate
Right.
term. But 20 years ago, every other freaking MM romance you read was a gay
Yeah.
for you romance, and a lot of it were top. And so, like, you go to MM romance from 2006, 2007, 2008, there's a lot of that. And then you
Hmm.
go and what you read now in the language that is used now is very different. And
Hmm.
you can see the evolution of that just through reading romance novels. Like, you can just read a
Right.
romance novel from every year from 2006 till now, and you will see the evolution of how queer romance has
Yeah.
changed.
I mean, speaking of fan fiction, I mean, like you said, we talked about 50 Shades of Grey at the beginning of the episode, and that was originally Twilight fan fiction. Like,
Mm-hmm.
fan fiction with the serial numbers being filed off is not a new phenomena, but it does feel like
Not at
it's
all.
a stronger, like, it's like gained a lot of momentum, particularly in the romance space
Yeah.
recently, like, relatively recently.
I think the book that did that was The Love Hypothesis by
Yeah.
Ali Hazelwood. I think that because that book was like proudly former
Yeah.
fic, as opposed to like, it's like that, the little secret that it used to be fic. Because there's a lot of big books.
Yeah.
Like Sally Thorne's The Hating Game was also a fic. And so,
Yeah.
like, it's
Do
books.
you know, sorry to interrupt, do you know what fandom it was? Because I like have heard that it's a
Yes,
fic.
Twilight, I think.
Was it? Okay. Because I've like been
Yeah.
wondering for years. Sorry. Like I heard that and I was like, I've been trying to figure out like what they
Yeah.
Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. Anyway, I think out the Love Hypothesis was the difference. Like, like the cover artist that Ali uses was like her fan art, like, like person that did a lot of the fan art for her fic. So I think it's the shift was that it went from it's something that we kind of don't say to we're
Hmm.
proudly saying this book came out of this very robust and big fandom. I mean,
Yeah.
I was also a big Raylo fan. That's probably been my second most read ship other than Stucky in the last like 10
Yeah.
years. I mean, I remember the first time Allie and I met, my phone cover was like dark Raylo. It was like, and she was like, and this was like right after the Love Hypothesis came out. And it's just like, it's one of those things where like, if you're part of a
Yeah.
fandom, there is just like a real
Hmm.
special thing about people experiencing that communally. And I think that is
Hmm.
something that like is now kind of in the romance space as
Yeah.
well. Like, I think fandom, like that kind of fandom has spilled over. I like the one of the biggest shifts I think that I've noticed in romance reading and like the way the romance fandom behaves since pandemic slash like so many people came into romance in 2020. And I
Hmm.
think that the difference is a romance just to be used to be something you really loved and did, and now it's like a lifestyle.
Right. And I mean the same, it's the kind of the same thing with fanfic as well, where it was like it's something you loved and did, but also like didn't really talk about
Right.
publicly.
Right.
And now it's like, all the cool kids are reading fanfic. And as someone who is similar to you, like I was my first fan foray into fanfic was like 15 years ago now. I'm like, you guys made fun of me for this.
Yeah, I mean, fic was one of those things where like I mean, I haven't talked as much about being a fic reader.
Hmm.
And I mean, I was reading and writing Buffy fic. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've been in the trenches, baby. Okay, like I've
You
been
were
out there
there.
for a long time. And I don't think I've spoken with people out loud. Of course, like you speak to people in message boards or whatever,
Yeah.
but like about fics and fandom more than like in the last few years than I have like my entire
Yeah.
time being a person that was in fandoms. Like I've been in fandom since Buffy. And I think like I think there's a more of an understanding of what
Hmm.
a fandom is and what that means communally, what kind of experience it
Yeah.
is to kind of just like be in a space where like you're really kind of all obsessed with this one thing. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I think a lot of it honestly has to do with millennials and Gen Zers. I'm a Gen
Hmm.
Xer, but I think
Yeah.
millennials, younger millennials and
Hmm.
Gen Zers just are able to love things in a more like unabashed way.
Hmm.
And I think that has helped kind of like move things a little more into the light as opposed to Gen Xers where we were just like comfortable with like
Yeah.
shame
Making your
and just like
zines.
having secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. As a young millennial, I definitely the shame was we haven't worked it out. Maybe Gen Z has
Gen Z, I
done it
think for
more
sure.
successfully and Gen Alpha.
Yeah. No, Gen Z, I think for sure is just like so much more. I mean, also they grew up with fic, like
Yeah.
if you think about Harry Potter fandoms and all of that,
Right.
like it's so part of how they experience
Yeah.
a property as opposed to us. Like,
Yeah. It wasn't like Xeroxing zines. It was going to AO3 and fanfiction.net and yeah.
right.
Right. But you brought up Allie Hazelwood earlier, and I feel like that's a perfect segue to just wanted to ask about what was sort of the impetus between starting AH squared, which I can't believe it took me until then to realize that you guys have the same initials, by the way. Like I was
Yes.
like, oh yeah, that's cool. But you guys had like one of the most popular publishing Kickstarters. Like, I mean, it was like a fort. Like it was like I felt like I was like, is this what like football fans feel like when they see their team go to the Super Bowl, like watching how that Kickstarter exploded?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the impetus was Allie and well, we're friends for many different reasons, but
Right.
one of the reasons why we've become, I think, really close friends is A, because we have a shared love of the same things in terms of
Hmm.
romance. Like, we have a lot of the same favorite authors. We've also been reading romance since we were very young,
Yeah.
and we're both immigrants. Like, we both came to this country as grad students. And I think one of the things that, like, really have, like, I think people who are not from this country and discover romance, I think it's something that really informs your sense of like this place and the American
Hmm.
culture. And so I think that may be part of the reason why like she and I have such a like strong bond. But mostly is that we were like, we just want to see the books that we think are amazing
Hmm.
get the visibility, or the authors that we think are amazing get the visibility that they deserve, or at least that like we can potentially offer authors that we think are amazing an experience of creating something where they can write whatever they want, and like we'll take care of them, and then they can also make money, like we're not
Right.
interested in keeping like it is, like it is like a really traditional publishing is hard to navigate because you are, you know you give up your intellectual property. Essentially you have,
Right.
you it's a royalty system, so like they keep a lot of the royalties, like, and it is the system that it is, right? But like we also like that is not what we want to do. We really want to
Hmm.
have a model that is equitable, where everybody makes the same amount, like I think people saw the number and they think, we, Ali and I have made millions. Like, equitable models are not supposed to make anyone a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's, we wanted a system where everybody makes the same amount of money, where
Yeah.
we give the authors the most positive experience that we can, where they feel supported, where the art that we create, they have input in, where like I do a lot of the creative direction for the projects, but like
Hmm.
at every step of the way, the authors are involved in how their covers look like. And we try to get artists that are also people of color so that they are able to like do a beautiful illustration of a black woman or
Yeah.
a dark skinned black woman. So the impetus was that we wanted to create like a boutique publisher that took on projects that Ali and I feel extremely passionate about and that we can speak to with passion. I mean, I think romance is, I mean, thinking about Heat of Revelry, like that's one of those books that always had a lot of readers because of word of mouth, because people read the book, loved
Right.
it, and told someone else, you really should read this. And Ali and I, that's the ethos that we have for this, for AH squared, is like we will only do things that we are extremely passionate about. And I think that comes out in how we speak about the project, the way that we roll it out. And so, yeah, the impetus is just doing cool projects with people
Hmm.
that we think are amazing writers and trying to engage a community of readers that sees value in diversity and in kind of just like loving this genre hard, right? Like, I think there's romance is something that I'm very passionate about. Like,
Yeah.
it's truly something that I is very valuable to me as like a person, but also like I just think this genre is really, really important.
Hmm.
And so does Ali. And so I think we come at it from that place of like being very passionate about what this genre can be for
Yeah.
people.
Do you think that others like seeing the success of what you guys have done and like the power of it, do you think that will inspire more authors or more creatives to mimic like the model that you've created?
Hopefully. I mean, I think there is such a, I mean, I think one of the cool things about being in this time in romance, or be a romance reader or be a romance entrepreneur, is
Hmm.
that I don't think there's any such thing anymore as niche. Like,
Yeah.
this is also not to make everything about Heated Rivalry, but I think Heated Rivalry is the perfect example of this. Of like, if you know the audience that you are doing something for, and you really respect that audience, and you want to make something that is for them without thinking about how to make it for everyone, then people will come. And like, there is enough of us in
Hmm.
anything to really build an audience. I think in
Yeah.
romance too. Like, I think, if you're doing a Kickstarter, you don't necessarily need 5 million people to join. You just need like, a few thousand really, really dedicated people who really want that thing, or who really feel strongly about that thing, or really interested in that thing, and making it more about letting the creators create in a space that's positive and nurturing, and let the readers get something that they know they're part of, a model that is going to be equitable and not exploitative, where
Hmm.
the authors can retain their rights to their work. And I think there is something to that kind of way of doing business in romance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean, I think the community aspect has always been such an important
Yeah.
part of reading romance. Like, and I think you could probably say this about most genre fiction is that like there's,
Yeah.
it's not something you read in isolation. It's not this like cerebral thing, whatever, that you read and then like muse about. whatever. It's something that you read and then you want to talk about and you want to share, and like
Yeah.
that there's something really powerful about books and a genre that encourage not just like the singular act, because reading like at its core is like a one-on-one act, right? For the most part, like it's something you do by yourself. But having a genre that makes that, singular action into a collective is
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, romance is commercial fiction. Like, it's meant
Right.
to be consumed by large numbers of people, and it's meant to be something that is entertaining and satisfying and that makes you want more.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that piece of like, once you're in it, you are kind of part of this like larger readership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Romance as it is right now, like where the romance genre is going, what's happening in it right now. What is a rose for you and what's a thorn for you?
Hmm. I mean, a rose for me is how much of the, I think there's a level of like awareness of the romance genre right now in like a larger consciousness than I think I've
Hmm.
ever seen. And so that's exciting because I think it's the possibilities there are amazing.
Yeah.
And what's always a thorn for me is there's not enough representation. I
Yeah.
think there's just not enough diversity. I think there's just not enough support for authors that are not white cis het authors. And I wish that there was, like, I wish there was more romantasy, like Mia Davenport's romantasy. I
Mhm.
wish, that we got more horror romance from people that are not, you know, white cis straight people.
Yeah.
So that's always the thorn. It will always be the thorn until it
Yeah.
isn't, and I don't know if it ever won't be. But
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it's like there's a scary side to the world now having this awareness of romance because I'm very protective of it. Of like,
Hmm.
like we've always, it's like this secret that's always been mine, and now like there's all these people in my house. But also, I do think reading romance is good for people. I think it
Yeah.
builds empathy. I think it builds connection. I think it just makes people more joyful and hopeful. It's a genre that's aspirational, that's transformational, that's powerful. And so we need so much of that in the world right now. We need joy, we need connection, we need the ability to empathize with our neighbor
Hmm.
and see that everyone's deserving of a happily ever after. So I think that is exciting and also
Yeah.
a little terrifying, but also
Hmm.
mostly it makes me hopeful for the world that people can like, again, not to make everything about heated rivalry, but to see the world fall in love with this queer love story
Yeah.
makes me very feel like maybe there is a possibility that we'll be okay.
Right. Yeah. I love that. All right. Final question. What was the last book that made you want to stay up all night reading? You didn't literally have to have Ed stayed all night, but you were t at least tempted.
I have been reading this series called the Hazard and Somerset series by Gregory Ash. He is a queer, it's like romantic suspense. And the
Hmm.
Hazard and Somerset series, which is one of my favorite all-time series, is the first five books of these two men. And I can give you the synopsis. The
Okay.
hook of it is it's two detectives. There are two detectives in the Ozarks,
Yeah.
and one of the detectives was like out as a teenager in this very small town and has come back in disgrace. He was in the FBI, got fired from the FBI, and is now like police detective in this like small town police department.
Hmm.
And he gets partnered with the guy that was like his bully in high school.
Okay. All right.
And so it's a five-book series with them as the main central couple, and it's amazing. Like it is such a great series. Gregory Ash is a phenomenal
Okay.
writer. But there's like another like 10 books or 12 books with
Yeah.
them in like different stages. Like, something happens in those first 6 books of the first series, and then there's a spin-off with them that's
Mm-hmm.
like another 6 books, and then there's like another spin-off. So I had never read the other 2 spin-offs because the first
Right.
one, I just wanted to kind of be like, they're okay, and I'm okay with this just being the end.
Yeah.
But I just recently reread them, and I finally been like, okay, let me break the seal and read the other ones. And I've read 4 of them in the last 3 days. So,
Perfect.
so those are the books. It's called A Union of Swords. So the first book is just
Okay.
Hazard and Somerset, and then the second, like the spin-off of the Hazard and Somerset, with them still as the main couple, is called A
Mm-hmm.
Union of Swords. And
Okay.
then there's a third one that I'm gonna read once I'm done with these. But
Yeah.
anyway, phenomenal reading. And it is more like there's a mystery in every book, so it's more like a
Mm-hmm.
romantic suspense mystery,
Yeah.
but just top tier romance reading. This romance is the most epic, these 2
Yeah.
men.
Yeah. All right. You just like stuffed my teeth. I've been looking for like a new something to sink my teeth into. So
Just be warned, they are going to put you through the ringer.
yeah. I mean, you said romantic suspense. I'm like, yeah.
They will tear your heart out. But they are 2 of the most like truly like most like to me like legendary romance pairings.
Yeah.
Like they are just their love is so incredibly epic. Like they are just amazing. Gregory also is a phenomenal
Yeah.
mystery writer.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Real quick, where can they find you? Where can listeners find you after this episode?
They can find me mostly. I mean, I'm on Threads more, although I'm on hiatus right now, and on Instagram, and then my website, adrianaherreraromance.com. You can sign up for my newsletter, which I usually send out like once a month, sometimes like once every 3 months,
Awesome.
but I'm trying to be better in 2026.
Yeah. And the new AH squared collection is going to be announced soon, right?
Yes, we have officially one in May. It's coming out in May, but we haven't announced all the details. But
Yeah.
we're launching in May, and we'll be sharing details soon. And then we might have something else, but later this year. But I can't share any details.
Dang it. Just
Other
edge us
than
a
to
little
say it's
bit.
gonna be so great.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so great.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad I have 2 things at least to look forward to from that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for
No.
coming on to talk. And as always, friends, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at We Read It One Night. You can email me, wereaditone@gmail.com. And any of the books that we discussed in this episode are going to be on the podcast bookshop.org shop. If you buy your books from there, you not only support the podcast, but you also support independent bookstores. So it's a win-win. You can also check out the Etsy shop, which is linked in the description of this episode. And please leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Godspeed, comrades.